Hey everyone! I thought I'd update you on a couple chapters of the book we've been reading, Edgar Allan's Official Crime Investigation Notebook. Just to update you on where we left off last week, on chapter 5, Edgar's fish had been stolen from one of his classes. The hamster was still there, but the fish had gone missing and nobody seemed to know where it was. So he had taken it upon himself to begin an investigation to see who had stolen the fish and if the fish was going to make it back safely. So he had interviewed Taz and the kindergarten teacher, but hadn't had much luck in his investigation. And he was feeling a little bit jealous of one of his classmates, Patrick, because Patrick seems to be getting more information than him, and he just really wants to solve this mystery. So we'll get started on chapter 6. For dinner that night, fish on a bun with tartar sauce. Edgar looked at his plate and thought of Slurpee. He couldn't eat. "So how was school today, boys?" Edgar's mom looked at Edgar and his older brother, Henry. "Did you learn anything?" his dad added, shoveling a spoonful of fish mixed with mushed peas into his little sister's mouth. Although they had taken off their costumes and clown makeup, Edgar noticed with dismay that they didn't need odd clothes or cosmetics to look like clowns. His father was extremely short, had a shiny bald head, and a wide smile, with a big nose that always seemed to be somewhat reddish at the tip. His mother was tall, with tiny ruby lips, sparkling green eyes, long black eyelashes, and a shock of red hair that she wore in a pile on top of her head, like 3 scoops of strawberry ice cream. To the 3 Allan children, they were known as Mom and Dad, of course, but to the rest of the world, they were known by their stage names, Tubby and Twig. Edgar summoned his most serious tone and announced that they'd had a robbery at his school. "A robbery?" Twig put her fork down. Eyelashes were fluttering. "What was stolen?" "The goldfish from Mrs. Herschel's room." Henry laughed. Even though little Rosie didn't know it was funny, she laughed too. "It's not funny," Edgar said. "Sounds like the fish dropped out of school," Henry said. Tubby and Twig roared as if this was the funniest joke on the planet. Rosie slapped her chubby hands on the high chair tray. Twig leaned forward, her eyebrows arching, and asked, "What do you call a fish with one eye?" "Fsh," Henry guessed, and they all laughed again. "Anyway, I have important news," Henry announced. "Today I played so well in band, Mr. Copeland said I could play a solo at the band concert." He sat up even taller, which was impressive since he had inherited his mother's height, along with her red hair, green eyes, and double-jointed fingers. "Congratulations, Mr. Music Man," Tubby said. Twig raised her glass and the 3 of them clinked. "I was thinking I could do a solo at the cabaret, if you want," Henry added. The proud parents smiled at each other. The cabaret was a talent show that they hosted to benefit the Children's Hospital every year. "What a lovely idea," Twig said. "Wonderful," Tubby agreed, sticking another spoonful of mush into Rosie's mouth. Edgar cleared his throat. "I was thinking, if I had a dog, I could bring him to school and train him to guard things." Henry set down his milk. "I've heard of sheep dogs, but dogs that guard fish? What do you think, Rosie? Fido, the fish dog?" Edgar's brother panted and howled at Rosie, who laughed so hard that mush dribbled down her chin. His parents couldn't help laughing too. Edgar just scowled. "I'm sorry, Edgar," Twig said. "We're not laughing at you, you know." "Well, what about it?" Edgar persisted. "A dog?" Twig shook her head. "We've told you before, you kids keep us busy enough. Besides, I'm sure your teacher will make sure nothing else at school gets stolen." Tubby wiped Rosie's mouth and gave her a wooden spoon to play with. She grabbed it and promptly bonked her dad on the head. "Ouch," Tubby said. "Maybe we should trade her in for a dog." "We were talking about the cabaret," Henry said. "How many friends can I invite this year?" For the rest of dinner, Edgar's parents and Henry talked about the cabaret. It was supposed to be fun, but Edgar found it stressful because he didn't have any talent. Last year, his dad tried to teach him how to play the accordion, but his fingers were tripping over the buttons, and he quit. "Are you going to do anything this year, Edgar?" Henry asked. Edgar pushed away his plate. "No." "Why don't you play the cowbell on that song that your dad and I are doing?" Twig said. Henry laughed. "Yeah, play the cowboy." Tubby gave Henry a look. "The cowbell is a great idea. Right, Henry?" Right, Henry said. trying to unsuccessfully hide his smile. "Which reminds me, where do cows go to do show business?" Tubby asked. "New York City!" Twig stood up and sang. "If I can make it there, I can make it anywhere. No other place than old New York." His parents started mooing in a two-part harmony. Henry added rhythm by clinking his fork on his glass, and Rosie banged along with her wooden spoon. On another night, Edgar might have joined in, but he couldn't stomach it tonight. Ever since Henry started middle school and made it into advanced band, he thought that his accomplishments should be the topic of every conversation. Now that Edgar had finally had something important to talk about, nobody even seemed to care. Patrick's dad was probably giving him all sorts of crime-solving tips at this very moment. "Excuse me," Edgar interrupted. "Can I use the computer tonight to do some research?" Henry stopped. "I already asked to use it. I have to download clarinet music for school, and I have a history report that's due first thing in the morning." "That's true," Tubby said. "Edgar, do you absolutely need the computer tonight for homework?" Edgar sighed and shook his head. He had thought he would look up fish facts to see if he could find some kind of clue. To make it worse, Henry hopped up and said, "Ha! And it's your turn to do the dishes, Edgar." "Knock, knock," Tubby said. "Who's there?" Twig asked. "Dishes? Dishes who?" Tubby stuck a carrot in his mouth like a cigar. "Dishes, a very bad joke." "You are so cute." Twig leaned over and planted a kiss on top of her husband's bald head. Rosie leaned forward and burped. Edgar sighed. Could this night get any worse? He wrote in his diary, "I'm in the bathroom right now because I'm too mad to be in the same room with anybody, and they're all taking up all the good rooms, and I'm sitting in this bathtub with all my clothes on because I don't feel like sitting on the toilet, and there are no chairs in here. Am I the only one who cares about Slurpee? I wonder if he's dead. Is there such a thing as goldfish heaven in the clouds? Since clouds are really floating water molecules, then I suppose fishes could feel right at home with them. Maybe there's an entire school of goldfish spirits in the clouds. Maybe Slurpee is happier being up there with all the other fish. I always thought that he looked lonely in that little tank. On the other hand, Mr. Furball kept him company. Maybe they stayed up late and did tricks for each other. It would be nice to have a friend like that. I just had a bad thought. I imagined that I walked into Miss Herschel's room and found Mr. Furball was gone. I said, 'The thief! He struck again!' And everybody looked at me and said, 'Oh, no!' And here's the bad part. It was exciting. I want Mr. Furball to go missing. A nice person wouldn't want an innocent hamster to be the second victim of a dramatic crime wave. I just really want to solve a mystery. Everybody has something they're good at, except for me. This could be my thing." Through the crack under the bathroom door, the sound of Henry's clarinet music drifted in. His parents had joined him on the ukulele and the accordion. Through the bathroom window, which was open slightly, he heard the groan of his neighbor's car starting, and further off, he heard the sound of sirens. Edgar imagined being very high up, as high as a cloud. He imagined floating up there, like a spirit of a goldfish looking down and seeing the whole world at once. Seeing all the people get into their cars, washing their dishes, feeding their babies. Seeing all the kids working on computers and doing their homework and watching TV. Seeing all the teachers in their houses grading papers and drinking coffee. And seeing all the hamsters, too, running around in their cages and the fish swimming in their tanks. And even seeing a real skunk creeping around in the woods and a thief creeping around on the street. And there in the middle was a boy, fully dressed, in his bathtub, writing and worrying alone. Let's check out what happens in Chapter 7. The next morning, Edgar kept his fingers crossed the entire bus ride, and all the way down the hall. When he walked into Miss Herschel's room and saw Mr. Furball running on the wheel inside the cage, he uncrossed his fingers and slumped into his chair. No criminal had crept in. No thrilling second theft had occurred. It was just an ordinary day in class. He wrote, "I'm disappointed that Mr. Furball is safe. What kind of person am I? Miss Herschel is about to take attendance, and Patrick Chen is still not here, and I'm thinking, I hope, that he's sick. How will I feel if Patrick Chen has something really wrong with him? Will I feel happy then? I'm definitely not thinking very nice thoughts." Just as Miss Herschel was finished taking the roll, Patrick walked in and announced that he had solved the mystery. Edgar felt sick to his stomach. A metaphor poem came to him all at once. He grabbed his pencil and wrote, Me, by Edgar Allan. I am a big glass, but instead of being filled with orange juice, I'm filled with mean thoughts toward a certain someone, even though I know it isn't nice. Miss Herschel set down her coffee cup. You solved the crime already, Patrick? Through interviews and forensic analysis, Patrick nodded. Interviews and forensic analysis? All I have to rely on is my own brain, Edgar thought. Yesterday I interviewed the principal and Mrs. Peabody at the front desk, Patrick went on. They said there were no strangers on school property yesterday during the time of the crime, so I believe that the thief is someone who belongs at this school. Good job, Patrick, Miss Herschel said. Interviewing is a great way to get information. Thank you. And there's more. Patrick held up a photo that he printed out. This is a shoe print. Someone with dirty shoes left his print right here at the scene of the crime. He pointed to the floor in front of the chalkboard. As you can see, they don't belong to Miss Herschel. I checked with Mr. Browning, the custodian. He said he mopped the floor the night before and did not return to the classroom in the morning. So, I believe the shoe print must belong to the thief. He pointed to the picture. See this distinctive tread with a pattern of O in the center? During recess, I found matching footprints in the mud. Through careful observation, I discovered who the footprints belonged to. Everyone was silent, waiting. Patrick grinned. Well, who is it? Kit blurted out. The person who has a shoe print with an O is Tad Rascal. I knew it, Maya exclaimed. Everybody looked at Taz's feet. So? My shoe prints were on the floor, Taz argued. What does that mean? I was the first person in the room? Of course my shoe prints would be on the floor. According to Miss Peabody in the office, you were the first student in the building, Patrick said. You had time to take the fish without ever being seen. Now, Patrick, Miss Herschel interrupted, I like that you're observing shoe print impressions. That's what an investigator would look for. But remember, just because you find a shoe print near a crime scene doesn't mean the shoe belongs to the criminal. Taz does come in early every day to check on the pets. That's his job. So it would make sense that a shoe print would be there. Well, Patrick said, I have another piece of evidence, and he held up another photograph. What is it? Kip asked, trying to see. It's a photograph I took of a poem written in the boys' bathroom. Patrick read, There once was a great dude named Taz, who had a lot of pizzazz. He likes to play jokes on all kinds of folks, especially the kids in his class. Miss Herschel looked at the picture again and sighed. Taz, is this your handwriting? You know you're not supposed to write on the bathroom doors. The poem proves that Taz likes to play tricks on people and likes poetry, Patrick summed up. Those are two things that are true of the thief, and we know that Taz is a pet lover, so my theory is that Taz wanted Slurpee all to himself. He took Slurpee, but then he felt guilty about it, so he called his mom. I was a witness. Wait, Taz said. Another crime has been committed. Someone stole the brain right out of Patrick's head. The class all laughed, but Patrick's theory made Taz look awfully guilty. Edgar couldn't bear the thought that Patrick had solved the crime, so he looked at the picture of Taz's poem, trying to find a hole in his theory. Wait, he cried. Taz couldn't have been the thief. The thief has great handwriting, and Taz's handwriting is terrible. Hey, yeah, he's right, Taz said. Miss Herschel nodded. Interesting observation, Edgar. Forensic investigators often use handwriting to analyze and solve crimes. Patrick, we can't accuse unless we have solid evidence, and at this point, I believe we still need to keep our eyes and ears open. Yeah, Patrick, Taz said. Patrick glared at Edgar. Miss Herschel stepped between them. Edgar, have you uncovered anything else that might help? Edgar looked at his notebook. Sadly, nothing he had done so far was any good. The theory about the professional fish thief, the worry about Mr. Furball and the kindergarten fish, none of it had led him any closer to solving the crime. He shook his head. Well, I suggest we all keep our minds open, Miss Herschel said. Use your powers of observation. Consider all the possibilities. Remember, the culprit is sometimes the opposite of what you expect. Edgar wrote, I'm going to try opening my mind right now. Think, think, think? It could be anyone. Someone who might look sweet on the outside, but might be rotten on the inside, like the Easter Bunny with rabies. Or Clarice Stolnup. The crime happened between 8:25 and 8:55, and no strangers were in the building. If the thief is someone from school, it can't be any of the kids on my bus because we didn't get here until 9. So it must be someone who walks to school. The walkers in my class are Kip, Taz, Patrick, Destiny, Maya, and Gabriella. Kip is fast, and he wrote a really good poem. Could he have done it? Maybe he skateboarded in. No shoe prints then, but he has really bad handwriting. Aha! The doors of my mind just banged right open. Who is the opposite of a criminal? Destiny Perkins. She's the best student in the class and the nicest, happiest girl. She never gets into trouble, even when we have a substitute teacher. She also has excellent handwriting and loves poetry. One problem. She and Maya Gomez have been best friends since the 1st grade. Why would one best friend steal the goldfish that the other best friend gave to the class? I'm going to observe Destiny. Never fear. I will solve this mystery. So next time I record, I'll read to you guys chapter 8. I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you think that it could be that Destiny stole the fish, even though Maya gave it to the class? Or do you think Patrick and Edgar are both on the wrong track? Talk to you soon.